Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Well, hey there. Welcome into the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks a lot for downloading this. And if I could be so bold as to ask a quick favor, I don't do this often, but if you have a second, do you mind, if you're an Apple Podcast consumer or you're a Spotify user, could you leave a written review and a 5-star review of this podcast? It helps others learn about it and spread the good word. We're so appreciative. And thanks a lot for choosing this show, as you do each and every day, consistently making this one of the top-performing news commentary podcasts out there in the universe of all there is to choose from these days. And I thank our sponsor now for years, John Ruhlman, who has been basically the principal sponsor of this show and has helped so many of you in this audience, most importantly. The reason I love doing business with John and the team at U.S. Medical Plan is because they really help people in this audience. I'm not just talking about people that I've heard from through email. I'm talking about people in my own life. Colleagues of mine, friends of mine, my own parents. I sent my parents to John and his team when they were looking for supplemental insurance with their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. That's my senior parents, all right? I have a personal friend who had a daughter with some special health needs. He was spending tons of money a month on private health insurance for them. John got him a better plan, saved him $1,000 a month. I have colleagues that have saved hundreds of dollars a month. If you're a small business owner and you supply insurance for your employees, that's a generous thing to do. Is it really expensive? And you're thinking, maybe I can't do it anymore? Wait. Call John. Reach out to his team. They shop with 100 different private health insurers all over the country. If you're an Obamacare user, that is not getting any cheaper this year. I can already tell you it's going to go up, up, up. There are private health insurance companies out there that have much lower rates than you think and cover everything that you need. I know people assume if it's cheaper, it means less coverage. Not necessarily. Or it may be that you have the best coverage going, but you're not going to know until you reach out. Please turn to the team at usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or give them a call today, 877-410-4321. That's 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Hey, good to be with you, folks. How you doing? Hope your weekend was a good one. Welcome in. Looking live at Chicago this morning, where by this time tomorrow, according to the weather reports, I was just reading this morning before the show started. How you doing? 855-STIGALL is how you reach us today, by the way, if you'd like to get in here. This weather report from the National Weather Service, I said it to my in-laws who live out there because I said, are you aware of how dire they're saying this could be? The Chicago's National Weather Service issued a significant statement regarding an intense lake effect snow event. In over a decade, it's the strongest wording those who watch this stuff has ever seen from them. Rare for them to experience a north or northwest flow of weather, air specifically, that results in lake effect snow being concentrated over northeast Illinois, northwest Indiana, but that's where we find ourselves, predicting snowfall rates of 2 to 5 inches per hour, Fast Eddie. 2 to 5 inches per hour and a total snow accumulation of 2 to 4 feet if the current snow band trajectory holds from starting today into tonight.
That's Buffalo level. Can all those places handle that? Ooh.
I'm not sure. I was saying earlier at the top of the show, I don't know. Can the all these ice protesters, what are they going to do? I'm not sure. You're going to have to put a hold on throwing stuff at ice guys, I guess, and try to figure out what to do with all the snow. That's a lot. I mean, 2 to 4 feet of snow, maybe today.
I'm sure there's a joke somewhere here with ice and snow, but I'm just not connecting the dots.
Anyway, it sounds like the government shutdown is coming to an end, thanks to a handful of Democrat senators, and the American left is furious about that. I was just reading some of these delightful posts on X this morning. Man, are they furious about it. Let me put on the old reading spectacles here because I'm dealing with some small print. I think Senate folders are significantly underestimating how effing angry Democrat voters are at them. I don't like the phrase moderate Democrat to describe people who folded. Caving to Trump is the extremist position. Just so you know, the Democrats think that the Senate is about to cave to Donald Trump. That's their official read on this. Senate moving to end the government shutdown. The Senate last night taking the first step toward ending the longest shutdown in history after a group of Democrats broke their party's blockade. 60-40 vote paved the way for spending agreement to begin making its way through Congress. We told you last week, because of a couple of United States senators who visited with us, they thought that a deal was imminently coming, thought it might have happened before week's end. It didn't end up working that way. Took till Sunday, but it seemed like the Republicans we talked to were pretty confident it was coming. So not really a surprise. Surprised it took this weekend. I think it's the flight business, frankly. I think once they started canceling flights this weekend, and there were quite a few that were, I think once that happened, the pressure was on. I think also it was obviously very clear that Tuesday's election outcome was all most Democrats really wanted. They wanted to use, and they said it over and over and over again, they wanted to leverage the pain of the American people to help hopefully turn it into wins for them on Tuesday. And they got that. And so, by all accounts, this was coming to an end anyway. 8 senators in the Democrat caucus voted to advance this, which would fund most federal agencies through January. You know why they're most mad? And I think this is wonderful. Thune, the guy who runs the Senate for the Republicans, Thune has told the Democrats, okay, all right, look, let's reopen the government, and I'll give you your stupid vote to continue to fund Obamacare subsidies. And we'll call it second week of December. You good with that? We'll have a debate, and we'll vote on continuing to subsidize Obamacare. How's that? And apparently that was enough for this block of 8 senators, the magnificent 8 on the Democrat side, to come together and help the Republicans reopen the government. And this has the American left just livid. Let me enjoy some more of these because I know that you will with me. They list them. Never forget who sold us out. Hassan, King, Cortez Masto, Shaheen, Kane, Fetterman, Durbin, Rosen. Angus King from Maine, they're calling the Neville Chamberlain of their party. What are some others here? This is so much fun. They want Brooklyn. They were calling for pots and pans to be banged in the streets of Brooklyn. We are going to Chuck's house tonight. They said, Ed, little Chucky Schumer, we have to make check on him. Last night they said in Brooklyn they were going to show up on his front doorstep, banging pots and pans and hey and ho him.
I bet he doesn't even know how to use them either, right? He doesn't know how to use a grill to do that.
He said, it's kind of isn't it sort of a defeatist proposition? Like, why would you go to he's in D.C. He's not even home in Brooklyn. Like, if you're going to go bang pots and pans, don't you go to D.C. to do that?
Yeah.
Why are you bothering his Brooklyn house? Nobody's home. What do you think he's going to see it on his Ring doorbell?
Mr. Schumer, we want Chuck. Ding, 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 ding.
So stupid. Democrats have to stop bailing out Republicans from facing the consequences of their own policies. And yeah, that means they have to stop sparing voters from experiencing what GOP government truly means. Every time Dems step in, it only emboldens the GOP and they make it worse every time. Folks, I'm just reading you what the American left is telling themselves this morning. I think it's instructive. The Democrats who voted for surrender should be hounded out of office ASAP, writes another. The responsibility for this disaster runs much deeper than that. Any Democrat who does not vote for new leadership to prevent this endless replay of failure does not deserve your support. Another writes, every single Democrat senator who votes to cave on this should be immediately ejected from the party, and the National Party should immediately start running primary candidates in their districts. There is no bipartisanship possible with traitors and fascists. You either fight or die. So they're continuing to underplay it and be very subtle. You either fight or you die. So they don't want to end the shutdown out there. They're mad. They think the Democrats had the upper hand here, and now the Democrats are caving and didn't get anything that they wanted. How do you read it, Ed? The politics of it. The left seems very angry. Does that mean Trump's won another one?
I don't think so. No. I know they're angry, but this was, I mean, look at the senators who did flip. Like Kane, that's an easy one. It's just like he had to wait until Virginia's elections happened, right? Before he came out and supported. So No.
Durbin in Illinois, though? I mean, the Shoney's big boy is ticked off, you know. He wants to be president, the Shoney's big boy, J.B. Fatboy Pritzker. He's mad, and one of his senators, Durbin, came across the aisle to make this happen. How do you explain that one?
He does, but the thing is, the more important thing, I think that this is kind of 4D chess. The Republicans did not have to end the filibuster to get this through. So
right. And you want to know what I bet? Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. Continue your point. Hold it. I actually believe personally they were very, very sure that Donald Trump was going to continue to push the Republicans on this filibuster thing, and I think that scared the holy hell out of them. I really do. I think this threat on the filibuster business, I think Thune went to them. Thune doesn't want to do this. Thune didn't want anything to do with getting rid of the filibuster, but I think he went to them and he goes, guys, you know the pressure campaign he can mount, and eventually I'm going to have to relent. So you either help me out here or we're going to have to blow this thing up. That's, in my opinion, I think some of these more, if you want to call them centrists, which I hardly call them centrists, but some of these who were movable Democrats, I think they began to see, this could get very, very ugly quickly if we don't do something. That's my opinion. Anyway, please.
Yeah,
continue.
no, absolutely. And with the threat of the election in the rearview mirror, the only thing is, though, so we are going to be kind of having this fight on Obamacare and the subsidies. I mean, really, we don't want illegals being covered under Obamacare funded by our tax dollars, right? But we're still going to have that fight.
That's right, and here's the question. So Thune promises, and I have every reason to believe he's going to take them up on this. He promised it. I think he's a man of his word, and I think he's going to do it. Do you think Thune should bring to a vote and a discussion, again, about continuing to subsidize? I mean, Bernie Sanders was on the floor of the Senate last night. This is just, I posted it on X. It's almost impossible for me to believe that they say it aloud. He's on the Senate floor yesterday screaming and yelling that they should not compromise in reopening the government because if they do that, well then subsidies for Obamacare are just going to go through the roof. And he very specifically, he called it the Affordable Care Act. Do they even hear themselves? I'm not even sure they hear it when they say premiums are about to double for people if we don't keep the government closed to continue to subsidize the Affordable Care Act. And for those of you that are just wiping the sleep out of your eyes on a Monday morning, let me try that one more time to make sure it sets in. Premiums are about to double without you and I bailing them out on the Affordable Care Act. Affordable Care Act. Everybody get that? Premiums are about to double on the Affordable Care Act. Do people Ed, do people hear themselves when they say that out loud? Costs are about to explode on the Affordable Care Act without taxpayer bailouts. How does anyone not hear themselves when they say that out loud?
Chris, it's beyond me because we're in open enrollment right now, and I'm dealing with a lot of different people talking about it and not seeing that very simple point. It's like, oh my gosh, where would it be without the subsidies? Where would it be without our taxpayer dollars? No, they don't understand at all, Chris. We haven't messaged this well at all as Republicans.
And so I would just say that as we approach now, apparently this second week of December promise from Thune, and we'll continue to unpack it here and watch, that we're going to have a vote on Obamacare and our taxpayer dollars continuing to keep it afloat. I'm going to say to this audience, but I know you're informed and you get it, there's plenty of private sector, private market insurance out there that I'll guarantee you is more affordable than being held hostage by Obamacare. I'll almost always bet it. Not in every case, but in most. More in a minute. Yeah, it's weird. It's like, this was all for not really. It's, in fact, MSNBC's talking a little about it, but it's like, the Fox crew, the CNN folks, they've already all moved off the shutdown. I thought the whole government, I thought we were all pitter-pat and breathless and flights and the whole thing. It's like, that's it? It's a shoulder shrug? I'm not really... Democrats are mad and everybody else has just kind of moved on. This seems to have been what was gripping the country for weeks, I thought. 40 days or something we were in a shutdown, and now it's like, oh, anyway, what else is on? Click, click, click. All right. Anyway, if you're just waking this morning and joining us, glad to have you along. Thanks for joining us over at chrisstigall.com. Great way to catch us. Telling somebody over the weekend again who can't necessarily hear us on one of our great radio stations all over the country. How do I hear you? I get that question a lot, Ed. How do I hear you? How do I hear you? How do I hear you? How do you answer that question in 2025? How do I hear you? And my initial reaction is to say, everywhere. Literally everywhere. But I know that's not helpful to people that don't that are, of a certain age, maybe your demographic, how do you answer the "how do I hear ya" question?
All right, so I start with a friend in Tampa, an old business colleague, actually heard us on the radio. Just like, oh my gosh, there's Chris, there's Eddie. I'm like, yeah. So you can go to
Heard us on the radio in Tampa.
Exactly, yes.
Nice.
So look for us on your AM dial and FM in some markets, but it's really simple. Download the SNC app. You got your your podcast is everywhere, Chris. It's on, as we joke, it's on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Whiz Bang Boom. It's a whole.
you have to try to ignore the Chris Stigall Show on a podcast platform wherever you listen to podcasts, right?
Right.
Yeah, and YouTube.
And so, how do I hear you? Type Chris Stigall into Google. It's easy. You'll find a bunch of ways. Sorry to give a plug to Google there.
I know, I always feel flip about it. I don't mean to sound flip, but people say, how do I hear you? And I always feel like, well, it's the Google machine. My dad is now doing this thing, and I don't know if he's hit a certain age in life where this is maybe, 15 years ago? 15 years ago, I remember when I moved to Philadelphia, I started working with a guy. And I was not particularly tech savvy. I'm still not, but I was really not heavily reliant on doing a lot online. I was still kind of, I just wasn't hardwired. I mean, of course I had an iPhone and all that stuff, but I just wasn't inclined to not have human interaction with people. And so, for instance, it was very common for me to say, hey, do you recommend a good place to eat around here? I would ask a guy. And I came across a much younger colleague who I once texted over the weekend while I was new to town, and I said, hey, I asked him something specifically about where to go eat, I think. And his response to me was, do you not have Google? And I went, oh. Now, again, this was 15 years ago, so I'm in my 30s. That is something that now, as my dad, who is 73, he's doing this a lot now. He's texting me saying things like, hey, what's the number to that insurance guy you sent us to? And like that, you literally talked to him last week. Now, I know you have the means to contact him yourself. My dad is now texting me for information that I know he readily has available on the Google machine. But I think, do I have to allow him some space because he's of a certain age where the Google machine was not something you instinctively did? Or do I have to train him now? Anything you want to know in the world is at your fingertips in a search engine. Everything you need to know. Is it just training the brain for some of us, Fast Eddie? You gotta coach people. Where do I hear you? There's a machine that will tell you everything in the world you need to know.
Yeah, no, Google.com, Chris Stigall, you'll find every single which way. No, but Chris, you bring up something very important. Our technical director, G-Love, I mean, he has to, so I'm in my 30s still. It takes me time to do things, but that's pretty much what he says to me most of the time is, don't you have Google dude?
it.
So I hate to punt and say that, but Chris Stigall and Google, you'll find it. I promise.
I mean, I still value I value human interaction because more than going to a machine to ask the machine its opinion, I like to ask people, what do you recommend? What do you like? I mean, yeah, I can type in, where's a good place to get a steak? And AI will spit out some answer, but can I trust a machine to tell me a good steak over Fast Eddie? I don't think so. Not yet. I'm not there.
No. You cannot. You can't trust Google for that. Sorry.
Anyway, the big news today, 8 senators have broken with the Democrats, voting to advance a measure that would fully fund the government. Now, there are 3 amendments, just so you know. The House does come back into play here a little bit. There are 3 amendments that have been tinkered with of the 12 spending bills. 3 of them now have to go back to the House. Now, will we hit a hiccup in the House? Could it be the House Republicans screw something up? I don't think so, but there's still a procedural thing you should be aware of. So we'll continue to follow that here. Well, a lot of the country is starting to feel like ice skating weather now, looking at the ice terrace there, Rockefeller Center. Thanks for listening on The Answer there in New York, AM 970. Glad to have you all over the country. Cold snap has swept through at least much of the eastern half of the country. Woo! You feel that this morning when you stepped out there, Fast Eddie? Little frost on the pumpkin or whatever they say. It's starting to sweep through. Has it hit your neck of the woods yet?
We're anticipating it. Yesterday felt very spring-like, and it was very humid. But the thing is, if it stays humid, that's going to be really bad. That's going to be really cold suddenly.
Yeah, it's jarring. And again, they're expecting a huge amount of snow in the Chicagoland area, so we'll continue to monitor that. Our telephone number, 855-STIGAL. If you'd like to get in here. Over the weekend, they sent out street tough Scott Bessent again for another clinic on how to rough up the media. Sit there, take it. George Stephanopoulos, the tiny little pocket-sized diminutive anchor on ABC News, decided to tussle with Bessent, and Bessent came loaded for bear in number 54.
The best way to do it, and look, you were involved in a lot of these in the 90s, and you basically called the Republicans terrorists, and you said that it is not the responsible party that keeps the government closed. And so what we need is 5 brave, moderate Democratic senators to cross the aisle, because right now it is 52 to 3. 5 Democrats can cross the aisle and reopen the government. That's the best way to do it, George.
I can disagree with you about the history there, but we don't need a history lesson right now.
George, let's talk about
what's happening right now.
If you want, I've got all your quotes here. George.
I'm sure you do.
And
but let's talk about the situation right now.
Read your book, so you got one purchase on Amazon this week, and that's very much what you said.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you've read everything. I'm sure you're at the ready with it. Let's not go through. I think he should let him, don't you? And of course he knew Bessent had the goods and was about to read him directly from his book. Well, wait, we don't have time for that. You want a piece of me? Come on, you tiny little piece of excrement. My crap bigger than you. Come on, bring it. Street tough Scott Bessent. We love that guy around here, the Treasury Secretary. He continued, 55.
Over the course of the next few years, we could take in trillions of dollars, George. But the real goal of the tariffs is to rebalance trade and make it more fair. Over time, and the president's goal is to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. For the past 2, 3, 4 decades, we've seen our manufacturing sector gutted. So what would happen over time is we would take in substantial money as factories come back to the U.S., as we're seeing now. I was just down in South Carolina at a rare earth magnet plant and a Boeing plant on Friday. And, that's I believe 1,500 total new jobs. Tariff income will be substantial, but then that will rebalance. The goal here, George, is to rebalance trade. So tariff income will be substantial at the beginning. It will come down, and then domestic tax revenues will climb as corporate taxes go up and all these high-paying jobs are created.
I actually understand the math on this. Do you? I mean, it makes total sense to me. I have heard some people, again, claiming to be MAGA or formerly Trump voters who are now pretending like they're off the Trump train or whatever. And they say it is, you've probably heard this. In fact, somebody said to me over the weekend, Stigall, you're kind of ahead of the curve on this thing. I did not start hearing all of this sniping and chirping at Trump until this past weekend. You were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't entirely sure. And when you would say, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're better off for it, they said, you're right. Now I'm starting to hear it. It's showing. I guarantee if you're a conservative, you're on social media, it has now permeated your social media feed. And a lot of you, including those of you who are still enthusiastic about Trump and very glad you voted for Donald Trump, you're starting to feel, and Ed, this is something I know Rush used to warn about, and it's something that I don't say enough, and I don't think I should move off of it or ever forget. There is always a concentrated, concerted effort to dispirit you and me. When Republicans are actually winning or rolling, when Donald Trump is on offense and things are hard, and it's a heavy lift, and it's going to take more than a minute or two, and things don't turn on a dime, people grow impatient. That's the nature of the American voter. That's fine. But the media, along with those who I don't think are friendly to Donald Trump at all, I think for whatever reason, money or otherwise, politics, both, there are subversives in the tent that are now trying to dispirit, deflate, and even upset those who voted for Donald Trump to try to get them to turn. And specifically, as we've talked, younger people who are struggling. And there's no doubt about it. And I keep hearing people say, dismissing young people's concerns is a huge mistake because that's going to make them all go vote Mondami or whatever we're told young people will do. Here's the thing. Look, I'm not going to baby you because you're 20-something and you don't read. All right, I'm not babying you about it. Now, I'll explain to you like an adult why your emotional tantrum about things is not reasonable or logical. I'm not dismissing young people's struggles, but I'm not going to entertain young people's struggles as if it's Donald Trump's fault and he's to fix it in a year. Do you hear me, Ed?
Yes.
I don't like this. I'm getting very tired. My finances, yes, your finances. And guess what? If you actually paid attention and we had a civically literate American public, we wouldn't be in this place. But unfortunately, we have had decades of people in control of Congress and in the presidency that are not Donald Trump who have driven us to $38 trillion in debt. Now, that's both Republican and Democrat, I stipulate, but let's not act like all of this is on Donald Trump's lap and he's like a genie supposed to fix all of it inside a calendar year. And I get really tired. Young people are struggling, Stigall. Yeah, a lot of people are. Not just young people, older people too. We didn't get here overnight, Ed. We didn't get here over freaking night. Right?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I don't understand what the disconnect is, but again, I get back to the Republicans have never been good at messaging anything. I started with health care, but this is another thing. How do you explain to people that, one, Donald Trump can't fix this in, 11 months, 10 months? How do you explain to somebody, it's just like, well, he said costs were going to come down. It's like, yeah, you think he could snap his fingers and that just happens?
That's right. And so when Bessent is explaining this tariff thing, the reason I'm on this tear is him explaining why the tariff situation is what it is. I heard, I got into this literally last night with somebody. They said, Trump, I wish he'd do more domestically here and stop spending so much time over there. What over? I said, what are you talking about over there? Well, all these foreign countries. I said, what are you talking about? We have not had a domestically focused president like Donald Trump in my lifetime. I'll guarantee yours. This was a younger person. Well, he's always over there in China. He's over there in Saudi Arabia. He's over there in Great Britain. I said, do you know that 9 times out of 10, his travels, and we could look at his agenda over the course of the last year and his travel schedule. Do you know what it's almost always been about? Trade. Financial obligations. The way in which we're doing business with other countries. And yes, in there was an overnight obliteration of Iran's nuclear facility. And yes, in there were ongoing talks with Israel and Hamas and trying to figure out some kind of peace between the two. And yes, he did travel there to sign a peace accord, which I know made a lot of Islamists angry. A lot of Islamists with a lot of money who are now paying a lot of people in supposedly conservative circles to tell you that Donald Trump is nothing but an Israel simp and has done nothing else in the last year but work for Israel, which is a total lie. They're mad that Donald Trump has effectively brought moderate Arab and Muslim countries to the table to participate in the Abraham Accords, which is hugely meaningful for commerce in the Middle East and Israel, our single biggest partner in the region, which is an economic benefit to us. It is good for us that Israel is thriving. It is good for us personally and economically. That is good for us. It is good for us that there is a healthy UK. It is good for us that there would be a healthy Germany. It is good for us that there are economies that are healthy enough to do business with us and trade with us fairly. We are a global economy, whether you like it or not. But to say that Donald Trump traveling overseas is not doing a job domestically is just, that's idiotic. That's not even intelligent. Well, that's the perception, I was told. Young people perceive. Okay, you're not excused for being wrong because you're young and your perception is such. Now, has the GOP messaged terribly? Yes. That's why more Bessent, please. More cowbell, more Bessent. He explains it plainly. That was easy to understand. This tariff situation is not forever. It's a means to an end. This is all transactional. We've been screwed. Our domestic economy, we have been screwed by unfair trade practices and a government that is spending entirely too much money, led primarily by Democrats, but not exclusively. That's true. Yes, we have to shrink government. Yes, we have to reduce spending, which people in Congress are not willing to do, and that's sad. Rand Paul even pointed out yesterday with this CR. He said, well, another rubber stamp for more trillions. It's not that we're not reining in any spending. That's sad. Rand Paul is right. But look, what has this whole thing about the government shutdown been about? SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits. Handouts. Not about reducing the size of government. Not about trying to figure out how to lift people up so that they can produce for themselves. It's been all about what can government hand out to people. And if we shut down the government can't hand out things. And the public starts to get upset because they're not getting transfer payments. That's out of whack. That's bass-ackwards. And Donald Trump is saying this is just wholly unfair and absurd. We shouldn't be here. Scott Bessent is explaining, you understand that when we rejigger the trade imbalance here and business decides it is better to come here and make their goods and do their business and start producing things here, people are hired here. That's more domestic revenue here. That's more jobs here. That's more revenue to our Treasury here. We can back off tariffs as soon as everything is kind of even-steven and we're back on a level playing field. It's the same argument with taxes. You tax something more, you get less of it. You lay off the taxes, you'll get more. You get more economic activity, that's more revenue into the Treasury. This is basic stuff that young people in this country don't know. And so along comes the siren song of these morons that host these podcasts and say, he's an Israel stooge who's not doing the job of the American people. The hell he's not. He's closing the border. He's blowing the smithereens out of people importing drugs into this country. He has deported hundreds of thousands with millions on the docket still to come. That's just off the top of my head. He's lowering regulations. He's lowering taxes. He's done more in a calendar year domestically for this country than any of us have ever seen in our lifetimes. I would venture to say everyone who's living. Looking there at Michigan. Now, I don't know. That looks like a snowmaker there. That looks like maybe some ski sloping perhaps there in Michigan. I don't know. We're looking at Boyne City, Michigan on the Salem News Channel. If you don't have the app, grab it. You can watch these scenes along with us. We have cameras stationed all over the country. Looks like a little snowmaking there, but I heard that we're going to get a big bunch of it there in the upper Midwest. So if that's not natural, then it's coming anyway, from what I understand. And a lot of the country's under a bit of a cold snap right now. Looks like the government shutdown is also coming to an end. Perhaps as soon as this evening or tomorrow, depends on some kind of perfunctory stuff. There are 12 different kind of appropriations bills, 9 of which are clean, that is untouched. There are 3 that the Senate wants to monkey with a little bit, SNAP benefits being one of them in an agricultural bill. So anything the Senate touches, as you understand, has to go back to the House, and then the House has to sign off and say, okay, we like what the Senate did. And then once that happens, then it can go to the president's desk for signature. All right, so that's the way it works. There is still a bit of a procedural deal where the Senate Democrats can have some like 60 hours to throw a tantrum, and you can bet they're going to take the opportunity to do it. Your Pocahontases and your Bernies and these screeching Democrats who want to look like heroes and make ads for their presidential runs in 2028. They are undoubtedly going to take to the Senate floor here in the next 24 hours or so. The Senate Democrats could just waive all of this and say, okay, we don't want to debate, we don't need it. Let's just get right to the business. I mean, technically, government could reopen tonight if the Democrats just said, okay, fine. We're over it, we're done. It goes over to the House, they sign off on the thing, and the president signs into law. I'm not optimistic it happens that fast, but I would think by Wednesday at the latest, this will all be over. President Trump, as for him on Truth Social, I can imagine how frustrated he must be as the Supreme Court is now debating one of his signature tools in trying to right the American economy, and that's tariffs. And I think I don't know if he got bad news or if he's feeling like his attorneys and people that are arguing on his behalf before the Supreme Court on tariffs are thinking this is trending in a bad way. He got upset over the weekend on Truth Social. It was pretty clear to me, writing largely in all caps on one of his posts. So let's get this straight. the President of the United States is allowed and fully approved by Congress to stop all trade with a foreign country, which is a far more onerous thing than a tariff, and license a foreign country, but is not allowed to put a simple tariff on a foreign country, even for purposes of national security. That is not what our great founders had in mind. The whole thing is ridiculous. Other countries can tariff us, but we can't tariff them. It is their dream. Businesses are pouring into the United States only because of tariffs. Has the United States Supreme Court not been told this? What the hell is going on, he writes in all caps. Businesses are pouring into the United States only because of tariffs. This is a slow process. This is what's so difficult. It's difficult to explain in an instant 2025 existence in which we live, where everything's a button push away for everyone, the Google machine we were just talking about. It's hard to explain economics to people who want quick fixes. We're in a world of hurt economically, and Donald Trump is trying to turn around a battleship. Those don't turn quick in the middle of a giant ocean, and tariffs are a huge, huge part of it. The economy is in an existential crisis as it sits. The imbalance in trade alone, devastating. Tariffs right now are needed to save and secure the republic. I've been making that case here. We've been talking about it. Scott Bessent lays it out better than anybody. He just did again. It's going to take a minute. And now the Supreme Court perhaps is flirting with getting in the way and saying, no, President Trump can't do that. And so yet again, if Donald Trump is stymied here by the Supreme Court, is it Trump's fault? Well, it's perception, Stigall. He's not working for the American people. No one is working harder for the American people than this president is. No one. It's not even in a debate. It's not a debate. And anybody that would dare debate it or try, I would love for you to dial me up at 855-STIGAL and have at it. I'd love to have a conversation with you about your perception that Donald Trump is not working for the American people. Congress may not be. The Supreme Court may not be. Other countries are not interested in it. But Donald Trump is. Donald Trump doesn't want narcotics flowing into our country anymore. Donald Trump doesn't want illegals and rapists coming into the country anymore. Donald Trump doesn't want unfair trade practices taking advantage of our economy and gutting our economy and taking business outside of our economy and onshoring it into foreign governments. Donald Trump wants bad actors who do mean us harm neutralized, and you got to deal with that too. You cannot be an isolationist entirely. You do have to neutralize enemies, and Iran was one. And I'm not the least bit bothered that he overnight, with a couple of B-2s, obliterated the nuclear program of Iran. I'm not upset that he's blowing boats out of the water smuggling drugs. Doesn't bother me in the least. These are threats to the country, threats to the homeland, threats to the economy. He's doing a lot all at once, as a matter of fact. And, by the way, while he's at it, building a beautiful new ballroom at the East Wing, planting some flagpoles at his own personal expense, waiving any kind of income from this job that taxpayers typically fund and donating it to charity. This guy's moved heaven and earth for the country, alone, frankly, without any help, without much help at all. You want to be mad at somebody, be mad at Republicans, that's fine. But Donald Trump deserves no heat. Zilch. Frustrates me to hear anybody suggesting otherwise. I'm not saying he's beyond criticism, just in the area of trying to help and advance the government and the country. Military ranks are swelling because of his leadership. I could do a show like this all morning. Hey, are you ready to drop serious weight before the new year? Yeah, come on. I'm talking about at least up to 20 pounds. I bet you can even lose more than that, but at least 20. PhD weight loss is the trick. They've cracked the code with their metabolic reset system. This is a science-backed method that gets your body to burn fat first. It's worked so well for me. I lost over 40 pounds in just 4 months' time. I feel fantastic. This program is so simple, guys. They tell you exactly when to eat. They tell you what to eat. I'm the kind of guy, just tell me what to do. I don't want to think about it. Just tell me what to do. That's what they do. They customize the program to your body's needs and your specific schedule. PhD Weight Loss is the only program that guarantees success and your results. No starving, no endless workouts, no risky drugs. Just a smarter system that resets your metabolism. It shrinks that dangerous belly fat. It keeps the weight off, most importantly, for good. Now, when you call, if you do it today, they're going to waive your consultation fee. You'll get 2 extra weeks totally free and they'll cover the cost of your food during the program. And just for booking, you're going to get Dr. Ashley Lucas's book, 5 Steps to Reset the Scale. It's quite a deal, but you got to do it quickly because this offer is only good until the end of October. Come on, lose weight with me. Call now. Mention the code New Year. Call 864-644-1900 and mention that code New Year. 864-644-1900 or visit the website myphdweightloss.com. 864-644-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. President Trump spent all weekend on Truth Social. He said it, if he said it once starting Friday into the weekend, he said it a dozen times. End the filibuster. Terminate the filibuster. Do away with the filibuster. He kept at it all weekend long on Truth Social. Our telephone number, 855-STIGAL. Good to have you along on this Monday edition of the Stigall Show, Hour 2. Hope your weekend was a fantastic one. President Trump said, I'm recommending to Senate Republicans that the hundreds of billions of dollars currently being sent to money-sucking insurance companies in order to save the bad health care provided by Obamacare be sent directly to the people so that they can purchase their own much better health care and have money left over. In other words, take from the big bad insurance companies, give it to the people, terminate per dollar spent the worst health care anywhere in the world. On Obamacare and others, we must terminate the filibuster. This was met with some criticism, by the way. People saying, well, taking taxpayer money, giving it to others, giving it to taxpayers to subsidize their purchase of private sector. I don't think the private sector health insurance is the problem. I'm not even giving people tax breaks to buy their own health. How about being able to write off your health insurance purchases? How about that? Use the tax code to benefit people for... I'm working on something I'm calling the Stigall plan, which, I know I haven't been elected to high office, but I have put together, and I'm going to have for you, I think by tomorrow I'm going to have for you what I believe is going to be a workable Stigall plan for people. I was hearing people over the weekend say to me that, Stigall, you're ignoring I started to hear it Friday, you're ignoring the plight of young people out there struggling. And again, it's twofold. It's very frustrating because there are popular voices that are trying to dispirit young people right now, and it really frosts me. Young people do not deserve to feel dispirited about this country. Young people should feel very optimistic about this president, an America First president, a president who has done more for this country in one calendar year than we've ever seen in our lives. That's it. Period. Full stop. It's not a debate, and I can make the case, and I think I have been. I'll continue to here in a minute. But I'm getting very, very tired of the down-talking and the dispiriting and the sniping and the Trump's not doing it. Trump is moving heaven and earth. It is, as he has pointed out, Democrats barking like dogs on the shutdown. They're deathly afraid I'm making progress with Republicans, he said. They don't want the filibuster terminated. Whether we make a deal or not, the Republicans must blow up the filibuster and approve hundreds of long-sought but never-gotten policy wins. Like voter ID, for example. Only a loser would not agree to doing this. He's been pushing them all weekend to do that. It's why I think at least 8 moderate Democrats came to the table and said, okay. They didn't think he was going to let up on it. Meanwhile, he's been very, very frustrated with the Supreme Court and 3 of his appointments, a couple of which sound like maybe they're going to turn their backs on him and give him a hard time on tariffs. Very, very frustrating. So he's been posting about giving Obamacare more money, subsidizing Obamacare. He apparently sees that coming. He wrote in all caps, no more money, hundreds of billions of dollars to the Democrat-supported insurance companies for really bad Obamacare. The money must go directly to the people. Republicans should terminate the filibuster, he said again. He said people against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation and a record stock market. 401ks are highest ever. We are taking in trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt, $37 trillion. Record investment in the U.S., plants and factories going up all over the place. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, and that does not include high-income people, will be paid to everyone. This is an interesting thing Donald Trump has been floating out there lately. Fast Eddie, you, your wife, I don't know if it includes little Eddie or not. Is it just adult taxpayers or is it families too? But anyway, he says every American will get $2,000 because of the flow into the Treasury from his tariffs. You like the sound of that?
I like the sound of it, yes. Yes, I do. I could use that.
So here again, we should feel very optimistic, and young people should be made to feel very optimistic that if Donald Trump gets the wins he wants, he gets bureaucrats out of the way, he gets a limited government, he gets Republicans siding with his agenda, he gets a Supreme Court that doesn't try to stymie his tariff agenda, we might actually see an economy really work and turn around. But I know young people can't buy houses. I get it. AI is a big deal, something we've talked about. I've been covering at the Harumph Society. That's not Donald Trump's fault, but he's trying to creatively deal with that. And one of the ways in which he's trying to creatively deal with that is bring commerce and business back home quickly, and tariffs are the instrument to do that. Democrats are the ones that have sneered and sneered and sneered at America First, folks. And anybody that's telling you Donald Trump isn't America First anymore, or never was, or has turned his back on America First, it's always been Democrats that have sneered at MAGA, Make America Great Again, and America First. That was some sort of isolationist slogan or whatever they claimed. So President Trump has displayed time and again what it means. He's answered this. And now he's announced this $2,000 tariff dividend for most Americans. Cash drawn not from the Treasury, but from the trillions extracted from foreign producers who've been gaming our markets. This check is the receipt for every mile he's had to log overseas. And so when people dishonestly say, all he's doing is traveling overseas, this is why. All of the travel abroad has largely been to hoover in all of this money into the Treasury courtesy of trade deals. This is the clearest proof yet that his tariffs are driving a manufacturing and revenue renaissance. He keeps telling us, hang on, it's coming. You may not feel it yet, but it's coming. Trust me when I tell you. That's why he's going nuts over the Supreme Court right now, maybe stymieing him. Since his Liberation Day tariff announcement back in April, revenues have doubled to $234 billion. That's the highest since World War II. Has anybody told you that? Have the young people heard that? Since it's all about the young people who aren't feeling it right now. Numerous major corporations are shifting production from abroad back here to the country. Have the young people been told that? These are welding jobs, machinist jobs, chip fabricators. These are roles that AI can't entirely displace. And that's a masterstroke. Have young people been told that? No. There are some prominent podcasters out there that just keep shouting about Israel. Again, trying to dispirit, trying to splinter, trying to distract and destroy. 78,000 tech jobs gone this year. Millions more projected to vanish by 2030. Automation, it's the guillotine for labor. Trump's fault? No. But Trump's tariffs have been trying to reshore production, creating human-proof supply chains. AI can become a tool in American hands, not a terminator. Again, I laid this out last week at the Harumph Society. If you care to go read it again, I'm not going to belabor it. But we don't have to merely survive the AI robot wave. We can ride it. This is not a trickle-down fantasy, folks. This is a pipeline. Foreign tariffs to American factories, that ultimately results in perhaps, as he's suggesting, $2,000 checks to each one of us. The numbers are in. $215 billion banked this fiscal year. On pace, over the next decade, $2.5 trillion. $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years at this current pace of Donald Trump and his trade arrangements. That revenue easily slashes the deficit. It funds that dividend we talked about. It enables Trump's pledge to abolish the IRS, which he'd love to do. Another thing he's talked about, nobody gives him credit for. There is that thing called Congress we have to hold accountable. That's true. Pair it with a national VAT tax that taxes consumption, not creation. And goodbye IRS entirely. Just go to a straight consumption tax or fair tax, whatever you like. We can argue tax policy later. People's paychecks stay whole. No audits for overtime. No penalties for ambition. By the way, he's already given you huge tax breaks with Social Security come tax filing season. Tips on overtime. Tips on those who make taxes on tips, those who earn tips, those are eliminated. Trump's travels overseas have turned diplomacy into a profit center. He's not just gallivanting overseas for the sake of taking junkets and putting on tuxedos. These aren't just State Department sermons, folks. We have CEOs, prominent business people, smart people that are going to go back into the private sector who are now negotiating in place of formerly bureaucrats under Democrat leadership. Europe has dropped farm barriers now in exchange for tariff-free cars made here in the United States. China has got to end their currency manipulation or pay the toll. Bottom line, trust is earned on spreadsheets, not in summits and just talk. Reciprocal trade replaces moral posturing with tangible results. Exports rise, deficits decline, intellectual property theft is curbed, markets are opened. This tariff dividend that he's suggesting, $2,000 in your pocket, it's not charity. It's restitution. And it drives home Trump's inaugural vow that the golden age of America begins right now. But he needs us to hang tough and have his back right now, not whine and moan and complain it's not happening fast enough. Look, here's the thing. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to do this tomorrow. I've been thinking about it over the weekend because I've been, as you can tell, folks, probably a little bit here. As much as I'm trying my best to not get frustrated, I do find myself getting a little irritated with people that claim to be on our side, in my view, not giving President Trump a chance. I don't think we've seen a more significant president in our lifetimes, and I think before a calendar year has happened, before Donald Trump's even spent 1 year in office and has done remarkable things, I'm starting to hear a bunch of negativity that I think is trying to disparage and engender and stir up a bunch of negativity, particularly among young people. And I keep hearing young people are pissed, and young people are jealous, and young people want socialism, and young people want Mondami, and young people are getting rear-ended, and young people are... I understand all those things, but young people are being mal-educated. Is that Donald Trump's fault? And I think it is the responsibility of all of us, including Republicans in Congress, to step up and calmly explain to young people why we're here and why it doesn't have to be this way. Instead of the siren song of socialism and anger and grievance peddling, like some in my industry have now decided is making for a good business model. I think it's sick. It disgusts me that there are supposed conservatives out there selling anger, jealousy, grievance, and winking at the Mondami types and socialism, ignoring Islamism, ignoring bigotry, because maybe it's them causing us all our problems. Pretty classic stuff. We've marched people off to gulags and ovens for that same kind of thinking. I'm not going to be a party to it. I will not be a party to this, you hear me? Not on this show. Donald Trump is still America first. His policies heretofore have continued to live there. Now, he's not perfect. He's not perfect. I think what I just read today, if it makes you feel better, does it make you feel better if I'm critical, Ed? Is that it? Do I sound like too big a fanboy? Do people need to hear Stigall be a little critical of Trump to make you feel like I don't think he's perfect and flawless in every way? Okay, I'll give you something. Is that what everybody needs, Ed? Everybody needs Stigall to not be such a homer? Is that it?
I guess aside from explaining some civics and basic economics to people, yes, please. Indulge us.
Donald Trump and his home guy, Bill Pulte, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, over the weekend said they are working on a 50-year mortgage plan to deal with housing affordability. Stupid. Okay? How about that, Ed? Everybody feel better? Stigall's not a homer. I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. 50-year mortgages is a ridiculous solution, and there's a much easier fix to our housing situation for young people who can't afford it. I will get into this in more detail tomorrow, but I have what I'm calling the Stigall plan. I've been thinking about this, and I will launch it tomorrow. But young people are, yes, taking it in the shorts, and you know why? They've been going to very, very, very overpriced, ridiculous universities, getting worthless degrees, and going into tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And then on the other side of it, they can't afford a home, and they're not getting a job that's paying them anywhere close to being able to dig out from under that debt anytime soon. Now, President Trump suggesting with this Pulte guy that we give them 50-year mortgages, that's absurd. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. That just makes them perennial renters, no different than where they are now. Maybe in locking in an interest rate, but that's about it. There's a better way, and I'll talk more about that later. But bottom line, if young people are feeling dispirited, the answer for us is not to turn them bitter and angry and start pointing at the wealthy people and saying, why they have theirs, why don't I get mine? That's not who we are. That's not what we do in this country. We don't take. We're not takers. We're makers. We're doers. We're entrepreneurs. Growth happens when you shrink the size of government, when government stops taking money from people who make things and make profits and create jobs. And there is no environment, even still, there is no environment in the world that creates wealth and brings people from poverty to prosperity. There is no system better than ours, period, full stop. And the siren song of grievance, the siren song of socialism, the siren song of top-down command and control, everybody gets their fair and equal share of everything. Nobody has too much, nobody has too little. Big Daddy government will see to it you're taken care of. That siren song has been offered since time memoriam. No, and it's failed every time it's been tried. The free market economy is what works when it's allowed to work, and President Trump is trying to ignite it.
We were just waiting on the edge of a knife. When are we going to get to go?
I wasn't worried about, getting shot or getting wounded. I was worried about the guys to my left and right.
I told him that I wanted to go, and he looked at me and said, "Son, you're going to die." Foreign policy, I don't make it. I just deliver the last 600 meters of it.
That you just listened to or watched, if you were watching on the Salem News Channel, is a brand new film. It's out and perfect for Veterans Day, perfect for the Marine Corps birthday that we're observing this time of year. Michael Pack is the director and producer of what you just heard and or watched, depending on how you're consuming the show today. The Last 600 Meters is the name of that film, and Mr. Pack joins us today. Michael, glad to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you for having me on, Chris.
This is, I know, something that is, anytime that you see people that have put their time and effort into telling the story of the people that do the heaviest of heavy lifts on behalf of this country, those in battle, I know how much work and time and dedication goes into making it right and telling the story accurately and with respect, because obviously particularly the battles that you're covering are some of the most intense.
Absolutely. I mean, we, as you know, as you can tell from the trailer, we're focused on the first battle of Fallujah, Najaf, and then the second battle of Fallujah. And those were the biggest battles America has fought since Vietnam. And this film intends to tell the story from the point of view of the people who fought them, like as you were implying, Chris, from corporals and sergeants up to one-star generals that were in the field. So it doesn't go into the politics of the war. Should we be in Iraq? Why we're in Iraq? It tries to tell the story of the people who fought there and what they experienced. And you are quite right. It's very hard to get them to trust you with their story. A lot of them don't like to talk about it. They, of course, hate being called heroes, which in fact they are. So it did take a lot of time. And in this film, the battles themselves took place in 2004. And we actually interviewed the people in the battles 3 years later, 2007, when they were still young and their memories were fresh. And so you see them in the footage and you hear them speak, and they look more or less the same. And then we put it together, and it took many years for us to get PBS to agree to put it on the air.
I know, as you said, Michael Pack, again, director and producer of this film called The Last 600 Meters, that time in history, I remember it well. I was literally just getting into talk radio as a political person. I was not, I was purely in kind of entertainment music radio prior. 9/11 and the second term of the Bush presidency and our involvement in these wars was really when I began to talk with the audience about politics. I know your film is not about politics, but my point in saying all that is it was a distinctly different time 20 years ago where most of the country was very united. Everybody, I think, for the most part, had the yellow ribbons tied, and other than maybe the Cindy Sheehan sect, most everybody was behind what these men and women were doing. If not now, we look back later and see that it was ill-advised or misdirected. I know you don't go into that in the film, but my point is the way they viewed their mission, I suppose, back then was probably different than, say, something like a Vietnam, for instance, where there was much consternation. There was not that at home then, is the point.
Well, that's true. This was 2004, so that was early in the Iraq War. And I think these young, it's mainly Marine battles, but these young soldiers and Marines, they were proud to be serving their country. I don't know what they had, perhaps different feelings about the mission, but they are focused on, duty, honor, country. And I think they felt they were serving the American people. And I do too. I actually think, Chris, that when this film was a version of it was first completed in 2008, 2009, some people were wearing yellow ribbons, but a lot of people in the country had other views. And it was all caught up in politics. I hope that now we can look back and honor these veterans, whatever you think of the war. In some sense, this is actually like Vietnam, and that these veterans, I think, did not get the honor that they deserve because of people's conflicting feelings about the war, just like Vietnam veterans. But now I think we can appreciate the heroism of what they did. I mean, you can even see in the images now flashing around on the screen, these people put their lives on the line. Many were wounded, many suffered trauma, but they fought heroically, and we should understand that and celebrate it. Although we don't go into the politics of the war, you see the impact of the politics on the soldiers on the ground. First, they go into Fallujah, then they're told to pull back, and then they go in again. And you see them frustrated and struggling to deal with the changing political demands of them. So that you see the influence of politics, but from afar on the people on the ground. And it's called The Last 600 Meters because one of the snipers we interviewed said, "I don't do foreign policy, I deliver the last 600 meters of it," meaning what he could see through the sniper scope. And that's the focus on the film, the last 600 meters of the battle.
Michael Pack, again, the film's director and producer. These men and women in this battle, as you say, I know you don't go into the politics of it, but their frustration and not really being able to complete it. 20 years later or so, we have this debate now. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, has said, he brought it up when he was talking to the military generals last month. He said, we haven't won anything since the days of Schwarzkopf, and if we're going to engage in wars, they ought to be wars we win, but we ought to do so with great caution. The importance of telling stories like these is allowing domestic politics to dictate, whether we finish the job or not. It cripples people needlessly. I mean, we should be more thoughtful about getting into wars generally, of course, but if we're going, let's go win it, damn it. You know what I'm saying? And it's very, very difficult, I'm sure, for these men and women to do this and then suffer the long-term effects of it should they live to tell the story and come out of it often. I'm glad you tell this story because it helps me look back at a younger time in my life where it was all about jingoism and let's just go headlong into a war and get even with the bastards, 9/11 and all that. But it wasn't very thoughtful, if I'm to be honest with myself 20 years later.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I concur with the idea that it's a common idea that the military needs clear objectives and we have to make sure they have the means to achieve the objectives and know when the objectives are achieved. But I think you're exactly right, Chris. The purpose of this film is to make people understand when we say go to war, what we're asking people to do. So maybe they will show some caution. I mean, I don't say one should never go to war, but you should be cautious, just as you just said. And you can see why when you see the impact of these kind of battles, this sort of urban counterinsurgency warfare. And although we are preparing rightly for a war with our biggest enemies like China, that would be vastly different. In the meantime, most wars are like this, counterinsurgencies throughout history. And you can see wars like this going on today in Gaza, in Ukraine. I mean, Gaza particularly, Hamas's tactics resemble in a lot of ways the insurgents in Iraq. You can see in Najaf, they're sheltering in a mosque and the military can't hit the mosque. And they shelter in a hospital, so you can't really hit the hospital. And these are standard tactics, and they work very well, and they rely on the international media to pick them up the way they want. And we have to understand that kind of war and understand its risks. And that is part of the purpose of the film, just as you said, Chris.
And culturally, these people on our side, that is the men and women we send into the battle, they've got to understand the culture with which they're warring. I mean, this is driven, in many cases, by a theocratic notion. It's not just a flag-waving nationalism. This is, in many instances, particularly when you're talking about jihadists, this is driven by a theocratic motive, which is I'd rather die than surrender. Mm-hmm. That matters when you're talking about war in this region.
Absolutely. And these the battles of Fallujah in the north against Sunni insurgents, and the battles in the south, the Najaf is in a battle in the south against Shia insurgents. So it's complicated. Even in Iraq, it was religiously complex. But as one of our subjects, Sergeant Piana, says, it's hard to fight them because they're not afraid to die. In the second battle of Fallujah, they were prepared to die. They're ready to go to heaven, get their 72 or whatever the number is of virgins. And they're ready and willing to die. They just want to kill as many Marines as they can. And that is a very challenging enemy, very different, exactly as you say, from someone motivated solely by patriotism or nationalism.
How do they look at it today? I don't know that you go into it, but is there a review, kind of a rear view mirror look of what happened then and that conflict now, or is it more focused on as it was unfolding then?
Well, we conducted the interviews in 2007, and I thought I should stay true to the period of the time that the film was about, so that it's a record of these battles. As I say, we wanted to tell a battle story like it was Gettysburg or Iwo Jima or any other battle. So I hope 10 years from now, people will look back and that's what the battle was like. And that's how it seemed to the men and women at the time. So I thought updating it for now would make it less of a useful historical document. I will say that we're having a screening in Washington. We've invited many of the veterans. I haven't seen them in a bunch of years. They haven't all seen each other in a bunch of years. So I think I will know more about that in a week or two. And I'm interested to know what they do think. So we'll see. I mean, and I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's a variety of views, actually.
It's so important to tell these stories and frankly educate the audience. People like me who have not served and don't really know what it means. We talk about it. We can talk all day long and we can vote on war, but to actually carry out the business of doing it, it's an ugly thing. And I think this story helps us understand. This film will help us kind of understand what it means when we actually talk about it and send our brave heroes into war. This Veterans Day and Marine Corps Birthday, a new film called The Last 600 Meters. Michael Pack, the director and producer behind it. I'm glad you made it. I look forward to seeing it, Michael.
It's actually the day before Veterans Day Eve, November 10th, 10 p.m., across the country on PBS. That is exactly as you said, Chris, the Marine Corps' 250th birthday. So we're honored that PBS has selected us to be, a key show to celebrate these events. But if they miss it on PBS, it'll be streaming on Amazon the next day, and you'll have a chance to watch it at any point in the future.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. I appreciate this. Thanks for the film. Can't wait to see it, and we'll have you back soon.
That would be great. Thank you, Chris.
It looks chilly there in Erie, Pennsylvania this morning, listening on 103.3 WZTE. Thanks for listening, Erie. Glad to have you along on the Stigall Show today. Thanks for listening on great radio stations like WZTE all over the country, some 400 strong. You can always stream us, too. You can go to chrisstigall.com. You can go to... if you want to catch the show later in the day, if you'd prefer, you can download it just about anywhere podcasts are found. You can also catch us at snc.tv. You can get the app and watch it on your Samsung Plus television or any device. A lot of ways to listen to the show. And, of course, you can always catch it after. The podcast is also available on YouTube. So No excuse. If you want to catch the show, there's easy ways to do it or get caught up on it. President Trump has issued pardons for Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, and more, issuing sweeping pardon proclamations covering allies prosecuted in connection with efforts to challenge the 2020 presidential election. This is from the Post-Millennial. Rudy Giuliani among them. I'll be curious to know, you think, Christina, let me see. There are 70 people listed on this proclamation. I didn't look at the whole list. Let me see if Jenna Ellis is on it, which I was kind of curious about. Let's see. Is Christina... How would we... Is Christina Bobb on this list, Ed, our friend?
Yes, sir.
And she is on this list. Good to hear it.
Yeah.
All of these people were caught up in some very, very expensive. Mark Meadows, his former chief of staff. Those are names that you would know. Let's see. Who was the Kraken lady? I've forgotten her name already. Sidney Powell. She's on this list. So that's good to see. Some 70 people pardoned, Rudy, of course, being one of them. These people have suffered tremendously. Great personal financial peril has befallen them. In response to the announcement, a guy like Boyer wrote on X that he's very grateful for the support of the president and his pardon attorney Ed Martin and the many who have looked out for us since these expensive injustices have taken place in the swing states. We were targeted to sideline many of us politically. It's nearly bankrupted us and caused severe trauma to many good people on the list, and this is why it's important to get to the bottom of what was carried out against good faith and active citizens who took to the courts and questioned the 2020 election. By the way, not to wade too much into this because we don't know all of it yet, but there is big question right now, too, about what went down in New Jersey. Just in case you hadn't been paying attention, something strange, writes PJ Media, happened in New Jersey on election night, and the numbers don't add up. Jack Ciattarelli lost the gubernatorial race to the Democrat by a stunning 56-43 margin. That's a blowout. It left pollsters scratching their heads because, as we pointed out repeatedly, Ciattarelli came within, 2 or 3 of Murphy in the last election cycle? Ed, I mean, it was like a razor's edge Ciattarelli lost.
It was only the overnight dump that took down Ciattarelli the first time. It was that close.
This was supposed to be a competitive race this time. Trump only lost New Jersey by 6 points a year prior. If you're following the race, you know Ciattarelli had momentum going into Election Day, picking up endorsements from local Democrats and labor unions. This was the only gubernatorial contest where the GOP had a realistic shot of flipping the seat. And so then it goes on to say, exit polls, turnout figures, demographic margins, and the final tally made little sense compared to virtually every public survey. But here's the thing. This isn't a case of one pollster getting it wrong and crying foul. They noted 99% of pollsters missed the final margin at a similar scale. Right Angle News Network points to some eyebrow-raising numbers out of this race. Somehow from 2021 to 2025, the state's number of voters in the gubernatorial election jumped 500,000, over twice the pace of population growth, and virtually all of these new votes went Democrat. Ed, sound fishy?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, it does.
Republicans even had the advantage in new voter registration. So again, from 2021 to 2025, New Jersey's number of voters in the gubernatorial election jumped 500,000, over twice the pace of population growth, and virtually all of them went to Democrats. So we'll watch that as well as we go to Georgia, talk to Anna this morning. Anna, thanks for your patience. Glad you called. Good morning.
Good morning, Chris. With the 50-year mortgage, just such a bad idea all around. Think about how much interest the banks are going to make. And that is the motivation for this. I think that they're removing their risk exposure and putting it on to the homeowner. And there's going to be a very slow equity growth, if there is any at all. And the homeowner will never pay off their home in their lifetime. Most won't. This is a good idea for the banks and the builders, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. That's where it's good. And those very entities really want to. I'm a state-certified residential appraiser here in Georgia, and they're trying to get us the the appraisers to change our process we're using drop-down menus and that kind of. We're fighting it like crazy from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But this is the motivation. This is not a Ponzi, but it has some dynamics of a Ponzi scheme.
Well, I mean, a 50, even if you didn't question the motives behind it or who would benefit, a 50-year mortgage is like you said, it just makes you a perennial renter. I mean, you really never get to a place where you actually own the thing, which is the point of home ownership. And Anna, I hope you stay in touch because I'm going to lean on people like you. I'm going to unveil the Stigall plan coming up soon, where I talk about this a little bit. Look, this housing situation has to be addressed, but not this way. I agree with you, Anna. Thank you. Stay in touch. I don't know if you enjoy grilling as much as I do at home, but a great tasting meal right off the grill, it's hard to beat. Listen, grill masters, I just met Matt. He created what is perhaps the most revolutionary product for your grill going. It's called My Grillie, Grillie. Go to mygrillie.com/Chris right now and take a look at this thing. Christine and I have been cooking with it at home. We love it. We're trying to eat more vegetables, so we throw them right there in My Grillie, roast them to perfection. It's perfectly designed, this basket, for your food. It doesn't let the food stick or fall through the grates. There's absolutely nothing you can't cook to perfection with My Grillie. It is the best gift you're going to give yourself or your favorite cook. mygrillie.com/Chris. Go there, grab a 4-pack of these genius cooking tools for just $79.95, down from $119 originally. That's Grillie, mygrillie.com/Chris. And stay tuned to the show. Matt's going to show us everything you can make, including dessert on the grill. mygrillie.com/Chris. MyPillow is excited to announce they're having their biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you're not going to find anywhere else. MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88, any color, any style, and any size, even the king size. Regularly priced at $119.98, now only $29.88. Once they're gone, though, they're gone for good. My towels are finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regularly priced at $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time, and the only time, get their limited edition premium My Pillows made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queens starting at $17.98, kings at $19.98. And for a limited time, when you order over $100, you'll receive free shipping plus $100 in free digital gifts. 800-932-5056, promo code Chris, or use that promo code at mypillow.com, promo code Chris. Great to be with you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in. There's some snow this morning in Michigan. Oof. That looks frosty. There is some big snow coming the Chicagoland area's way, from what I understand. We'll continue to watch that. They say some massive snows could be coming to Chicago, which is going to really interrupt all of the harassing and throwing of things and trying to kill ICE agents there in Chicago. That's going to really put a damper on the Shoney's big boy, their governor, and his plans this week, harassing and attacking federal agents. Our telephone number is 855-STIGALL if you'd like to get in here. On that front, by the way, from ReadLion.com, the Department of Homeland Security has reported surge in death threats, an 8,000% spike against ICE personnel. DHS revealing that the death threats against ICE agents has risen 8,000%. Death threats doxing ICE agents and their families have surged. Bounties reportedly being placed on some agents, and that's confirmed in the Washington Times as well. Cartels are putting up $10,000 bounties for shooters targeting ICE agents, Border Patrol agents. DHS warning cartels are placing 5-figure bounties as part of the coordinated attack. And then over at the Washington Times as well, from Ben Wolfgang, legal scholars say the Trump administration may have a solid argument that international drug cartels are using narcotics as de facto weapons of war and are targeting the United States with the intent of causing physical harm in the form of drug addiction to its citizens. The rationale, analysts say, seem to be the Trump administration's best legal defense as it strikes alleged drug boats off the coasts of Central and South America while insisting the U.S. technically isn't at war and doesn't need congressional support to continue its deadly anti-narcotics campaign. So far, the U.S. has struck at least 16 alleged drug boats and killed at least 64 people in the process. The administration has deemed them narco-terrorists. The strikes have received significant criticism at home, including from lawmakers of both parties as well as abroad. Top officials at the UN recently said the administration is violating international law and carrying out extrajudicial killings. Well, here again, and it's much like the tariff policy. Donald Trump is coming up with answers. Donald Trump is trying to move swiftly to deal. Did you? Speaking of the Supreme Court, I was about to go there with the Supreme Court now debating his tariff policy. Did you see that? I was kind of floored at this. Jackson, Brown, Jackson, the newest Supreme Court. What is a woman? Justice, what is a woman? Did you see she actually stopped a court from forcing Donald Trump to pay SNAP benefits? Did you see that, Fast Eddie? Justice, what is a woman sided with Donald Trump? Is this thing on?
I'm starting to put stuff together for the show yesterday, Chris, and you had sent me an email, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I did a double take. After reading the headline, I had to read the whole story.
The Trump administration ordered states over the weekend to stop distributing food assistance through SNAP, and Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson temporarily blocked a lower court's decision directing the administration to fully fund it. You remember Friday, heading into the weekend, I complained, since when did judges get to tell the executive to spend your money? None of that's right. Like, one could argue, first of all, if Congress sanctions spending, your tax dollars, Congress has the power of the purse, first of all. Second, the president says, well, he's got this pot of money that he could spend if he wants to, but he doesn't. Okay, whatever. Like, I'm not going to get in the weeds on that. But then for a federal judge to come along and say during a government shutdown, the president must spend money he has access to as the judge wants him to. I was like, that's bananas. And apparently, I don't know, pigs have flown, Fast Eddie. Apparently, Justice What is a Woman agreed, at least in part. And she said, no, I think the executive branch has the right to. Because I do think she does, for all of the fallibility of her thinking, I'm being charitable there, I do think Justice What is a Woman does imagine a Barack Obama back in office again, and does imagine a Trump-appointed judge ordering Obama to do this or that. I do think she's still mindful enough of what a powerful executive means, and someday she imagines that a Gavin Newsom or an Obama-like figure will be back in the White House, and she would enjoy him having the ability to do what Trump is doing right now. It's kind of what I imagine she's thinking. I could be wrong.
No, I think that's exactly it, because I always remember what Ted Cruz said about Ketanji Brown Jackson. She said, like, they went to law school together, and she is very, very, very smart. And even though we haven't seen it up to this point, it's like, okay, I could see this is Democrats playing the long game. Look, she's in.
I just thought that very notable. So when everybody says Trump is being mean and won't pay for SNAP benefits, it was Justice What is a Woman who came in over the weekend and said, he's right. You can't make him spend money. Wow. Okay. Against my better judgment, over at GQ, Stephen Colbert. As Rush used to say, the left fails up. It's really unlike anything. It would have been so much easier to go into this business and be a liberal, because I would never be fired. I would only get raises and promotions and fawning coverage and praise. And even after being canceled for losing my company gazillions of dollars, I would be offered even bigger, more expensive and lucrative jobs and be profiled in GQ for doing so. Maybe I picked the wrong horse. If I was going to go into broadcasting, I should have been a leftist. So Stephen Colbert gets a fawning interview from GQ. And here he is discussing the role. Now, brace yourselves. I hope you're seated. Now, this happens to be, as I've shared with you before, a personal love of mine. I grew up having a love affair of late-night television. The Conans, the Carsons, the Lettermans. I just adored it. I imagined one day that was what I would be doing with my life. And then, of course, like everything, politics poisoned it all and ruined it all, and it isn't what it used to be for a lot of different reasons. The business model has changed. The networks are all looking at it. The math doesn't work anymore. People don't watch them the way they used to either, even if they weren't political, but politics didn't help. So anyway, Stephen Colbert is trying to... now imagine the day, before I play this, imagine he took over a show that was created by David Letterman and his team for CBS, who did not have a show of any kind. And on that show, David Letterman did things like throw bowling balls off of the roof and hand out canned hams and stupid pet tricks and top 10 lists and those sorts of things. Funny on the street pieces and bits with Steve Martin and Bill Murray. Really great, funny stuff. Stephen Colbert has since taken that show and destroyed it, run it right into the ground to the point that CBS has decided we don't need it anymore. They created one to compete 30 years ago, and now they've just decided to do away with the format entirely. But here's Stephen telling you how important he and that show is in number 53.
Why should shows like mine continue to exist, or like Kimmel or Jimmy or whatever?
And I said everyone plays a great affection, which is why
I said why? Oh, we're like your friend who at the end of the day paid attention to the news more than you did. And you're aware of it, you just didn't do the detail work that we did. And then we curate that back to you at the end of the day. But it's really more about how we feel about it, or I as the person who like is the vehicle for that. How we felt about today. All those things that might have made you confused or angry or anxious or happy or surprised or something like that. I feel that way at the camera, or to the audience, really. I'm really performing for the audience, and the camera captures it.
Oh, there's so much in that. There's so very much in that. Where does one start? I think I want to work backwards with he talks to the camera. Did you notice that his first utterance when talking about the audience was not the audience but the camera, talking to the camera, meaning he's playing to the camera. He's making love to the camera. It's cinematography. It's a show he is producing for the camera, not the consumption of he corrected himself because he knew how it sounded. I mean the audience, not the camera, not the audience, the camera. It's performative. He was playing a bit. He was playing a role. And then the arrogance of it, hitting rewind and going a little further. Stephen Colbert says the role of late night TV, we're like a friend who pays attention to the news a lot more than you do. And then we curate it and we come back and we tell you how to think. You see, I don't talk to anyone this way. I really don't. I mean, you can think of me and you can think of this show and you can have any criticism of me in this show you'd like. And Lord knows many of you have shared it with me over the last weeks. But the one thing that I can tell you from the bottom of my heart is I never assume anyone in this audience doesn't know or understand something well beyond what I understand it. I don't assume anyone in this audience doesn't read, doesn't know, isn't up on anything potentially I could be talking about. Now, if I can bring a fresh perspective, I hope that I do. Can I do it in an entertaining way? I hope that I do. But you see, this guy views a variety show. He's not even in my business. He is in the business of supposedly entertaining you. And he now takes it and believes the Jimmies and others, their role is not to entertain you, give you a laugh and put you to bed with a smile on your face. Their job now is to inform you because you're too stupid to pay attention to the news every day. You need to know what smart guys who pay attention to the news think. They'll tell you what to think, so you tune in and we're real smart and we're going to tell you why you ought to care about something or how to think about it because you're too dumb to know, but that's why we're here and that's why we're important. Johnny Carson is rolling in his grave listening to that kind of arrogance. I've really never heard anything quite like it. More in a minute. Well, Chicago, we're looking at you this morning. Expecting some big snows there, perhaps. Our telephone number is 855-STIGAL if you want to get in here. And, of course, we're online, chrisstigall.com. You can always find us there, or wherever you listen to podcasts, you can just look up Chris Stigall and you'll find the show there. YouTube as well, we post it there. Coming up, Erin Maguire. Every Monday we talk with her. She is a fantastic political strategist. What exactly went on behind the scenes is now it appears the government shutdown is coming to an end. 8 Democrat senators came on board and said, okay, we'll reopen. And without the left's concessions of subsidizing Obamacare, Thune did say he's going to give them a vote on it. But as of now, they did not get their subsidized Obamacare the way they wanted, the Democrats did. And in fact, what's in the Senate funding bill so far, extending government funding through January 30th. So the really good news about this is, at least, we're going to get through the holiday season. and get through New Year's and the whole first month of January before this shutdown thing undoubtedly starts up again come the end of January. Ed, are you glad at least to have a break? Thune has tucked in January 30th as the day we're going to revisit this as the deadline instead of they had pushed it so that it was going to be like the middle of this month, like days from now. Again, they pushed it out to January 30th. I think that's smart, probably.
It's smart, yes. Things are moving along as they're supposed to. I kind of, like a lot of people, this continuing resolution stuff's got to stop. I still don't know how we're going to stop it.
It's why Rand Paul is not supporting it, by the way. He's the only Republican in the Senate who will not support it for the very reasons you just said. CR does nothing but continue to rubber stamp trillions in spending. This Senate bill will also fully fund food stamps through fiscal year 26. So that's all next year. Food stamps will continue to be fully funded. It reverses all of Trump's federal worker layoffs. What do you think of that one, Ed? According to this, that is in this bill. Recording from CNN reading this morning, it reverses Trump's federal worker layoff.
I don't know if I like that.
Yeah. It does not extend Obamacare subsidies, which we've talked about. That was the huge sticky wicket, and it guarantees that there will be a future vote on subsidies for Obamacare. So what Thune effectively did was told Schumer, we're not going to vote on subsidies in this thing, but I promise you we will have a vote on subsidies in mid-December. Do you like that?
I guess whatever it takes to get the ball forward. I mean, I don't know if I like it, but I accept it.
All right, still checking in to take your pulse and your temperature on President Trump's drumbeat all weekend long. Get rid of the filibuster. Go nuclear. Thune, I want you to start rubber stamping policy. Mike Johnson with a slim majority in the House. Thune with a slim majority in the Senate. Boom, boom. House, Senate. House, Senate. Pass, pass, sign. Pass, pass, sign. Pass, pass, sign. Trump says we can start mass manufacturing awesome policy. But Thune, you got to ditch the filibuster right now. Do it. All weekend long he was crying for it. Now, I still won't know for sure whether that was to pressure these Democrats into coming to the table to reopen the government or if he genuinely means let's do it. But if he genuinely means let's do it, you think that Thune is right to pump the brakes and say, no, I'm not going that far, Trump? Or should he absolutely, this has been a fascinating debate, and I've heard both sides of it from this audience for days now. Have you warmed up to the idea of getting rid of it? Ed, you have not so far been a fan of getting rid of it.
I have not, and I'm still there. I'm still not a fan of getting rid of it.
We're going to see what Erin says about that, too, coming up. But you don't think anything good will come of it if that happens?
I don't like the idea of Obama with that power. I don't like the idea of Biden with that power. I know people are saying they're going to do it anyway. If they do, again, the last time they changed the rules, we ultimately got rid of Roe v. Wade. So if they want to do it, if they want to screw around, then we will. Good triumphs evil, Chris.
I'm really glad you brought up getting rid of Roe versus Wade. Do you know that I just read a story, and I probably will not get into it in full detail today, but there is a suggestion by the Federalist that a YouGov poll found that 54% of American adults believe same-sex marriage should be legal. That is down among U.S. adults, 4,400. Pew last year found that 67% of U.S. adults supported legalized same-sex marriage. The argument is, culturally, as the younger generation ages, their tolerance for the whole LGBTQ thing is going out the window, and that perhaps repeal of the Supreme Court sanctioning gay marriage, Ed, could come to the fore. And the Supreme Court, much like Roe versus Wade, may actually undo that in the future, and the country may have an appetite for it, including younger people. Could you imagine that day?
See what I'm saying? Yeah, that's the last time they did this, when Harry Reid screwed around. This is kind of where we are, where we're getting to. Yeah.
Keep a sharp eye. Keep a sharp eye.
How old were you when you started playing football, and what were some of the life lessons you took out of it?
Well, I did. I played tight end, but I mean, it was not quite football like this. It was a little bit easier. It wasn't so tough. And we had a quarterback who didn't have a very strong arm. No. I would say 10 yards was a long pass.
So you were never tackled by a guy like Jonathan?
No, if I was tackled by him, I would never forget it. We didn't get to play you too often, I can tell you that. But we had a good time, and I loved it. I actually love playing football. We had a good time with it.
So we were trying to look up your stats, and we wanted to know how many touchdowns did you have back then? 6,
is that right?
7?
I'm not sure I had any. I'm not sure. It's a long time ago. But
there you
no,
are.
but I did. Oh, wow.
Yeah, there you go. 85.
Well,
There you go.
at least you realize that I never tell a lie, right? That's very good. I haven't seen that picture in a long time.
Boy, I got to tell you, that is some footage from Fox Sports yesterday, the Commanders versus Lions game. Donald Trump, first time a sitting president has attended an NFL game since 1978. And not only did he attend it, but he was in the booth. Boy, does that talk to us about how times have changed from the Black Lives Matter folks controlling the end zone just a couple of years ago to Donald Trump now in the press box with the guys calling the game on Fox Sports. Here to talk about it, football fan. Although I'm sorry about yesterday. I saw that score, Erin. I wasn't watching. Yeah. I'm very, very sorry about that. I really am.
Embarrassing to be a Bills fan today.
How did the Bills go to Miami and get mowed over like that? Can you explain that one? What happened?
I can't explain it, but I think it's time that we actually start looking at potentially bringing in a new general manager to the team. I really think we've hit that point where we have so much talent and Josh Allen has shown so much. We keep hitting the wall and it's coming from the leadership at the top. And so here I am saying Brandon Beane might need to go get a new job.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I trust you. You follow it more closely than I do there in Buffalo. So, but it is notable, right, that President Trump has injected himself into this and that Fox welcomed him in. Now, I know, the story is that all the liberals in the crowd were booing President Trump as he was swearing in military members. That's why he was there, by the way. It was for not just to go. It was for the NFL Salute to Service initiative honoring veterans. Veterans Day, of course, tomorrow. What does it tell you that President Trump went to this first sitting president since the 70s to go, and that Fox brought him into the booth? This is, even a couple of years ago, I don't think we would have seen this.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a pop culture revolution kind of falling on its head here. I think your point's correct. 5 years ago, this would have never happened. The NFL was being dragged to the left by an ideological divide in the country. And I think a lot of big businesses, especially entertainment, has learned that you shouldn't pick political sides because you end up a loser in the end. You've seen the NFL had to walk back a number of initiatives and posturing they've taken before. You've seen even Hollywood celebrities admitting our voice doesn't really change votes, so why would we be so divisive? It's the Michael Jordanism. Republicans buy sneakers too. And you see President Trump really engaging in these pop culture moments that you haven't seen a lot of presidents do. It kind of takes me back to Arsenio Hall and Bill Clinton playing the saxophone, right? People like to feel that their president is a relatable person. The president not only did analysis, but color commentary up in the booth too. He was having a good time showing who he is. That's not a lot of stuff you ever see from politicians, let alone the president of the United States. Really, really a great moment there.
Erin Maguire is a great friend. She is a brilliant Republican strategist. She joins us every Monday for a segment we call Mondays with Maguire. Look, I know that people who are not necessarily fans of Donald Trump's, I'm not going to win over, nor am I trying to necessarily talk to Democrats or people that just hate Trump beyond a rational thought. They just can't handle talking about anything positive or even remotely positive. So I stipulate that. However, what I also stipulate is there are people on, if you want, our side, conservatives, those who claim to have voted Trump or supported Trump, now seem to be suggesting they're falling out of favor with him. You've heard it, you've read it. I know the economy for a lot of people is still not great, but here's the thing that I've been tackling this morning. I keep hearing young people are really taking it in the shorts, Erin Maguire. Young people are really getting stuck out there. And, that's why guys like Mondami won, because young people, the Republicans don't have answers and Trump doesn't have answers and he's not America for. And I'm like, that is just bananas, Erin. I have never seen a president move heaven and earth and do more for a domestic agenda in less than a calendar year than this president. Is that arguable? Is that debatable? Seriously.
I don't think it is, but you're asking the lunacy left to try and debate something that's rational, reasonable, and fact-based. That's something they generally don't excel in as a political party or as a media movement. We've seen Donald Trump secure the largest tax cuts in American history for middle-class families, making it easier to save for your child's education. And it's the left who indoctrinated children, who told them trade schools aren't the right way to go, that the only way forward is an expensive 4-year education funded by other people to take out loans. Not every American student excels in a 4-year degree. Many of them should go to trade schools, but the left demanded this, and now we're looking at a generation of students who are not meeting the academic excellence they would need in higher education, but feel left behind by an education system, K through 12, that didn't prepare them to get in the real world. And so President Trump brought more young voters into the Republican fold, but I see an ideological divide between young men and young women. If you look at the Mondami vote, obviously New York City is not a massive microcosm or a great lens for the country, but you saw 81% of young females vote for Mondami. I do think that young men are gradually moving toward more conservatism, more toward the Republican side. But I worry that of that same demographic group, that kind of 18 to 34-year-old block, we're looking at more young women shifting to the left. And I do think that's because of the abortion conversation in the country and the fact that we've let Democrats run ripshot over us on the difference between providing health care to women, making sure they can survive if there's a medical emergency, and what we believe to be fair and true as conservatives when it comes to protecting 2 lives when it comes to that conversation. This is a really big thing Republicans need to be looking at right now.
It's so funny you say abortion. That's another one of those words. It's much like I keep hearing some on supposedly our side talk about Israel. Those are two things that I honestly, like, I didn't wake up this morning and think about Israel or abortion. Neither of those two subjects were on my mind even a little bit this morning. And yet I keep hearing people say, that's all anybody's talking about. And it's like, really? Or is that something people are driving out there as a distraction?
I do think it's something that's being driven as a distraction. The main point always remains the main point for the American people, regardless of age, demographic, education, whatever it may be. It's the economy. It's about how much money they have in their wallet and what they feel is their ability to pay their bills or get a bigger paycheck in the long run. But when it comes to these ideologically diverse items, which are not the front of mind all the time, it speaks a bit more to a cultural ethos that derives the ideological divide we're seeing in young voters. It's not the top of mind issue, but it's a cultural one that pulls them apart.
And Erin, isn't it easier to get young people distracted with grievance and anger and cultural stuff rather than talk about issues? Look, everyone knows the economy is not as robust and strong as it could be and should be. Everyone knows young people are struggling. Mortgage rates are still too high. Homes are still unaffordable. Kids are saddled with student debt, as you artfully mentioned. But I think there's a movement, and not just of the left, I'm sorry to say. There's a movement among some of us in conservatism playing to that influencer culture or whatever, playing to the grievance, playing to the anger, playing to the covetousness. The rich guys are bad, Israel's bad, women are bad, whatever is bad, and it's their fault that you're not getting ahead. I think we have a culture of people selling that to young people instead of explaining the fixes Donald Trump is trying to implement, but are going to take more than a couple of minutes, Erin. It's not going to turn on a dime.
That's right. Really, what it comes down to is driving people at their most basic level, which is emotion. And you see the media and you see the Democrats and you see the far left ideologically prey on emotions of those who are younger and try to say, this is how you should feel. And if you don't feel, you are other to our community as this younger generation. If you don't believe that Taylor Swift, I might enjoy Taylor Swift, but if you're younger, if you don't believe and support her politically, you're a problem, right? She's very clearly a Democrat. It's always the otherism that they use with emotion to drive this, because it is about the economy. It is about being able to articulate the fact that these tax cuts were protected by Republicans, that SNAP benefits and WIC benefits are protected by Republicans. It's about bolstering a system that works and not rewarding one that doesn't. That's always a tougher conversation to have because it's not as emotionally based. It's why Zoran Mondami, even if all he said was affordability over and over, I mean, Republicans can learn consistency in message. Don't get dragged to the left in the culturally, ideologically divisive conversation when the obvious answer is right in front of you. Just say it plainly. It's about accountability. It's about opportunity, affordability. Keep the words easy because that's the emotion American people understand most.
Yes, and Republicans must do a better job communicating on economy, and they didn't in this last cycle. I think you're exactly right about that. So let's talk about this shutdown, Erin. Looks like we got 8 Democrats to agree. The base of the Democrat Party is livid. They feel like they didn't get anything they wanted. John Thune has apparently promised the Democrats we will vote on subsidizing Obamacare by mid-December. I promise you we will have a vote on it, but we're not going to subsidize it today. And there were enough Democrats convinced to come over and reopen government. How does this play out? As President Trump, by the way, all weekend long, has continued to bang the drum, get rid of the filibuster. Was that a threat tactic, or does he mean it? We know Thune and other Republicans don't want to do that. So that's a lot, but tell me how you see the last several days.
One, I saw that as soon as the government shutdown was being felt by everyday Americans, because unless you're living in Virginia where there's a large swath of federal employees, federal workers, or federal employees, people who work for the government, the everyday economics of the shutdown wasn't being felt by the vast majority of the country. But now that it has begun to affect air traffic travel, the ability to get home to see your family for Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's now becoming more tangible and real. That pain point was enough for Democrats to finally say, okay, we're going to give Republicans the vote they wanted the entire time. The difference here now is that we just have to vote an all-new continuing resolution with more time in it versus the original one that Democrats could have voted on 6 weeks ago instead of all this theatrics. The filibuster will continue to be argued, I'm sure, for a long time, but what we saw here was steady Republican leadership. Thune did not blink. Mike Johnson did not blink. You saw Democrats try to move their negotiations multiple times, and Thune said, you guys want to vote on this? I'll give you a vote. I can't guarantee outcomes, but get the government open. Thankfully, 8 Democrats saw the light of day enough, coincidentally enough, after the election to now reopen the government. They've done the first vote. They've broken the filibuster. They have gone past that. We're now in a procedural clock time where, based on Senate rules, we have to run a certain amount of time before they can get to final passage of the bill. The bill could pass today to reopen the government in the United States Senate if there is what's called unanimous consent. Every senator has to agree. Only one has to say, no, I don't agree, and they'll have to run the full time clock on it. All of that to say, we're likely looking at perhaps later this week where the government reopens and Democrats get the vote they asked for and were promised months ago by leadership, by Republicans, saying, we'll give it to you, no problem. Government's going to reopen here, funding SNAP through September of next year, making sure we are not making that a political football anymore. And Republicans stood firm. This is good Republican leadership, and Democrats finally got an election, so they came to the table.
And it was smart to push this to the end of January before we have to revisit it again, right?
Yes.
Instead of in a couple of 3 weeks or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, Congress loves a deadline, especially around the holidays. So taking Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, everything off the table, that actually gives them a better negotiation runway.
Good stuff, Erin Maguire. Sorry about those bills. Maybe the front office will listen.
I hope.
Toss the bums. See you next week. Thanks, Erin. More in a minute. Good to be with you. Hope your weekend was a stellar one. Looking at Roanoke, Virginia this morning. Virginia, one of your senators, Kane, came across the aisle, interestingly, to reopen the government. And boy, the liberals are mad. Oh, they are mad today, which kind of started my week off with a smile, I must say. It's fun to watch them freak out on the left. Keith Olbermann was just bananas. And he is anyway, but to watch him rage at Democrats is just a delight. It really starts the week off right. I would commend X to you. If you're not an X user, follow along. Chris Stigall, at Chris Stigall, ChristStigall. First of all, if you're on X and you're not following, I hope that you will. But if you are already there or you haven't thought about it before, days like today when Democrats lose, and particularly when they lose to President Trump, it's fun to watch the American left freak out and threaten their own. It's just a delight. Even El Jefe over there in the House, he's mad. He's threatening. He says, "Wait, you got to give us more time over here at the House. We haven't fully threatened. We haven't gotten what we want. We haven't exacted this and that." Well, anyway, El Jefe was over there on Meet the Press. Speaking of this weekend, number 57.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer did make a new offer, effectively saying let's extend Obamacare subsidies for 1 year in exchange for reopening the government for 1 year. You have said that you would support that proposal, but just last month you said this. Take a look.
A 1 year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits is not acceptable. It's a non-starter. It's a non-starter.
So, Leader Jeffries, what changed?
Well, the proposal that I was making reference to in October was something that was floated out there by a handful of rank-and-file House Republicans, and that was immediately rejected by House Republican leadership because they have no interest in driving down the high cost of living for everyday Americans. The Schumer proposal, of course, was offered in good faith.
Right. Naked politics. It's just naked politics. And as I said earlier, it's amazing to me to listen to Democrats say, we can't reopen the government until we use taxpayer dollars to prop up the Affordable Care Act. I know I keep circling back to that, what seems to be a very simple point, but it's one that I can't stop making. And I would say to everybody that questions, what the Republicans are doing versus the Democrats are doing, when you say the Republicans won't reopen the government and they're sticking people with a bunch of high health insurance costs, I say, no, what they're showing is the, quote, Affordable Care Act was never affordable. Obamacare was always a lie. You were sold a bill of goods. This accidentally blew up in their face. This is Coyote Roadrunner stuff. The Democrats are left holding the bag on Obamacare to try to explain now why everyone's premiums are about to go through the roof. It's because the dirty little secret is your friends and neighbors who buy their own private sector health insurance are subsidizing your Obamacare. That's why you've been able to afford the Affordable Care Act. Without our tax money going to it, Democrats have given up the ghost. It's no longer affordable at all. In fact, it goes through the roof. And this is why Democrats are so furious with those in office today in the Senate. That's why their base is mad, because this is now going to expose what all of us who are thinking people and have been paying attention know. But those who have just been on the receiving end of Obamacare and not really thought about the math of it, maybe didn't know or didn't care to investigate, now they're going to get socked with higher premiums. And I would just say again, you don't have to get socked with higher premiums. You don't, because there's still a private sector health insurance market out there that does exist, and it is cheaper if you want to shop it. For most people. Not everyone, but for most people. Nobody missed Mike Pence, but for some reason he's surfaced again, the former vice president, and had this to say about the Supreme Court hearing President Trump's arguments on tariffs, number 59.
I don't believe the Constitution of the United States affords the President of the United States the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs on friend and foe alike, and I hope the Supreme Court of the United States turns that around. Because ultimately, American businesses and American consumers pay American tariffs. And I have a sense that some of the results yesterday, and all credit go to the winning candidates, they found a way to get across the finish line. But when you see some of these results in traditionally Republican areas of New Jersey and Virginia, it suggests to me that the American people are troubled about those prices at the grocery store. They're troubled about the very consequences, the beginnings of inflation that's coming out of this new economic industrial policy of tariffs. And I think we ought to offer principles and solutions based on that timeless agenda of freedom.
The former vice president of the United States, a guy I really, again, I am a fallible human being. I am flawed, and my judgment can be flawed from time to time. I'd like to think it's less flawed than it used to be, but I fell for that guy hook, line, and sinker. And he sat there and just bald-faced lied. the wins in Democrat areas were Democrat wins. It wasn't primarily conservative, and the economy isn't. Oh, forget it. You know, you're smart. I'm not going to waste the energy. Anyway, more tomorrow. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.